a billionaire's $1 billion fortune collided with $1 million prenup. Signed at a pop-up wedding 25 years ago. His wife says she had no idea what she was signing. Sia is now writing a $42,500 a month child support check to her ex-husband and publicly calling California's system incredibly high. Don't know if she means high as in weed or something, but in any event, a Russian oligarch just lost again in a London court. His $5 billion divorce is going to trial in November. And Harry Styles and Zoe Kravitz are engaged after 8 months. Welcome to I Just Want This Done, not just another boring divorce lawyer podcast. Hey, welcome. All right. Welcome to I Just Want This Done, the show that avoids boring divorce lawyer stuff. I'm Rayford Palmer. With me, as always, is Rahul Iyer. We are partners at STG Divorce Law, coming at you live and worldwide from the Chi. So we represent folks in the Chicagoland area. We represent smart, successful people, and we help them get divorced better. We like to bring you some entertainment and education in our show. So, by the way, to tease and please, we have an interview coming up with a film producer that produced a really interesting movie that's coming up on June 4th, live stream June 4th. The recorded show will be out the following week. You'll get more information on that as it comes in, and we get more info. We'll tell you about that. We are also hoping to interview Belle Burden, author of this exploding nuclear meltdown book, Strangers. Their team's reached out to us. We're hoping to have Belle come on the show. Belle, if you hear about this, we want to talk to you. I love your book. We read it. We're going to actually do a special show about the book. We'll tell you about information about that in advance so you can watch the stream. Rahul and I are going to debate the book in a way, kind of go back and forth. Interesting, different type of show than we've done before. A very special I Just Want This Done is coming up. That's going to come up soon. We'll tell you when that's scheduled. We haven't put it on the books yet, but Rahul's going to read it. I've read it. We're going to go through it and talk about some points that are valuable to know from the divorce lawyer standpoint. It kind of sheds some light on what's going on in here. It's beautifully written. It's no surprise why it's a smash hit, but there's a lot going on here we're going to talk about, but not on today's show because we just want to give you some previews of what's coming up. Okay. Did the tax man make you impoverished? Are you still standing? Are we okay?
It's crawling over here, but you always get got by the tax man, as they say.
There's no escaping. It's like the rubber band man. You better get ready for the rubber band man. So so we're done with that. We're in May 7th now.
Yes.
So we got wedding season, SZN as the kids say online, and we are getting inundated with prenup requests. Folks, we don't want to do them if they're like 2 weeks before the prenup. We have other things going on here, and you can call us, but we're probably going to refer your thing out if you're getting married in a week. Okay. So call us when it's months ahead of time. We generally will take them if it's a month ahead of time, but closer than that, I call it malpractice in a box. We try to avoid that. So just word to the wise. Talk about your prenup with your future spouse when you get engaged. Don't let it go to the last minute. And we'll talk about a case where that's happening right here with the Billionaire. So we're doing a lot of consultations at STG Divorce Law. This is a busy time in the law firm, typically during this part of the year before school's out. And you can contact us at stglawfirm.com. That's stglawfirm.com. Look up STG Divorce Law on Google or your favorite chatbot because we're there too. And check out our reviews. You'll see why people love us. And we'd love to talk to you about your situation, whether it's a divorce case, paternity, or a post-decree matter. We're willing to talk to you. And we've got folks standing by who can take your calls. Okay. Want to tell you here's a couple exciting stories we got today. First up, Mike Fernandez, billion-dollar healthcare billionaire, tries to enforce a prenup after 25 years of marriage. Okay. What's the scoop on this? This just popped up in my feed. Somehow Rahul and I did not know about this, and we pride ourselves in being on top of these things. I guess this is fairly recently filed, but it came out of nowhere. Billionaire Florida couple Mike and Constance Fernandez are divorcing long-term marriage. They have to resolve a matter of a prenup. She is challenging the validity of her prenup. The divorce petition paints a picture of the estranged wife as deceptive and also savvy. And, of course, they want to make it sound like she knew what she was doing when she signed it. And, of course, the wife here, Constance, wants to say, I didn't know what I was doing when I signed it. That's kind of the angle. We'll get into that a little bit. We've talked about prenups a lot on the show, and we recommend them. And we'll talk about what's going on with this. There are 5 children. They have grandchildren, and they were married 25 years. They've spent a lot of money in gifts, charitable donations. And so Mike Fernandez is 73. He filed last month. That's why this is pretty new. His wife, Constance, is 61. He's the chairman of a private investment firm. He's a reported billionaire. He's a philanthropist and society figure in the Miami area. She is a philanthropist and society figure as well and has worked as a real estate broker and healthcare executive. Okay. This is quoting from the Why Entertainment story. Links in the show notes for you to read all this stuff yourself. They made a lot of headlines in the community for charitable events, things like that. Mike's attorney says Constance is contesting it, saying she basically now claims she thinks she got a bad deal. She claims the prenup was given to her the day of the wedding. This is from her attorneys. She didn't understand. This is in their pleadings, their petition. She says she didn't review the financial disclosure. Now, part of a prenup is a full financial disclosure where you lay out the cards on your income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. And he would have had to do that. And that's part of a prenup, is laying out all your finances. She is claiming now she didn't even know what it was. When she signed it, she was not informed, she claims. Mike's divorce petition describes the wife as a seasoned expert in business, lawsuits, and litigation, personal relationships, and matrimonial strategy. Well, that's interesting. He's seeking to have the current court enforce the prenup. The two sides are appearing at a hearing in early June, where I'm guessing the court will rule on the validity of the prenup, because if it's valid, you go in one direction in the case. If it's not valid, you go in a completely different direction. So courts will typically rule on these things ahead of time to determine whether they're valid or not. And essentially, Mike's side is trying to portray her as well-informed and possessing of the abilities, that she's not an innocent kind of babe in the woods. She knows exactly what was going on at the time when she signed it and wasn't deceived or tricked at all or under any undue pressure. So the interesting thing is, she sounds like a sophisticated person. When they married 26 years ago, she was director of a healthcare company. She inquired about membership of a company he owned. She was divorcing her previous spouse. She presented herself, this is a quote from the pleading, as a very smart, sharp, capable, and educated executive. They started dating. She ended her marriage to her first husband in 2000. Mike now alleges she had past financial and business issues of which he was unaware. So apparently, they claim that she asked for the marriage, not him, or she asked first. She was pressuring him to get married. This is a lot of juicy stuff here. These are all allegations, not yet proven. Here's the interesting thing. There apparently was a pop-up wedding at his house, October 24th, 2001. He says was given the prenup 2 weeks before the wedding. By the way, longer is better. 2 weeks is a little short. Had it been months, he'd be in better shape. But even so, I think he stands on pretty solid ground. The prenup was witnessed, notarized, and signed. And at no point did his wife object to it. She did not display she's under any duress or coercion. And these are important facts about a prenup that will hold up. They had a lavish lifestyle, and he's got a ton of money. And basically, from the news stories, it appears there's a liquidated provision that gives her $1 million in the divorce and nothing else. She doesn't get half of anything, just $1 million to walk away. Very similar to the Kevin Costner prenup story we talked about last summer. So we'll see. This story is developing. We're going to know as things start to roll here. But obviously, it's worth a shot for Constance to try to knock this thing out, because there's so much money at stake that if she can knock this over, she stands to gain potentially tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. So we know why this is going on. And word to the wise, if you're a wealthy person or any person getting a prenup, do it as soon as you can. Don't try to do it close to the wedding, although close to the wedding alone is not fatal. And interesting stat we came across in researching for the show, 90% of prenups are upheld in Florida. Then there's a whole bunch that we don't know about that never get to the challenge stage because they just don't fight them. People say, oh, they don't work. Well, the ones you hear about are the ones that don't work because that's newsworthy. The ones that work are not newsworthy. So anyway, that's the scoop on that one. Yeah, I mean, $1 million is like a small percentage of his total fortune. So Mike claims in the petition they actually talked about the prenup for months before signing. Again, that she's a sophisticated business person, not kind of an innocent type person that doesn't know. Wedding day prenup signings are a big litigated issue in Florida divorces. And the same in Illinois. People will take a shot at challenging them if they think there's an angle, and they'll give it a chance. That's the scoop on that. In Illinois, the law is very similar. We've adopted the Uniform Premarital Agreement Act in 1990, just like Florida did. And it takes a lot to overturn a prenup. The key things are voluntary signing, full disclosure, and it can't be unconscionable. And it's not unconscionable today. It has to be unconscionable when it was signed. And that is a high burden to bear. That is tough to prove it's unconscionable. Totally one-sided prenups have been upheld, folks. In our state, it has to be, basically you have to leave somebody impoverished for the court to find it's unconscionable. Like you have to say, well, if there's no alimony, like let's say there's a waiver of alimony, what we call maintenance. And if it leaves the person in poverty, the court will order some maintenance. But these things generally work. So apparently 4 kids from his prior marriages, and he had one with Constance. That's what we call the seal the deal baby. So that's what happened. He says the prenup is about more than one wife. It's about protecting wealth transferred to his 4 other kids. Well, we'll see. We got more celeb divorce news here about.
Up with it, girl. Rock with it, girl. Show them it, girl. With a bang bang.
We've been wanting to play that for a long time. You know, the up with it, girl. Bada bam bam. Okay, Rahul, tell us about Sia.
Yes, that's actually, that's a song with Sia and Sean Paul. So that was actually Sean Paul, but it's the Sia song. Right. So this is about Sia, and we've discussed her case in the past with Daniel Bernard, the divorce case she's got. And so updates, Sia has signed on to now, or she has quote unquote agreed about a month or so ago, March 28, 2026, to pay her ex-husband, Daniel Bernard, $42,500 per month in child support, with payments started on April 1st of 2026. As we've previously said, they have one child together. We've talked about the name, Somersault.
People don't give your kids wacky names. They're going to be made fun of forever in grade school. It's just Somersault Wonder, really? What are you doing? What are you doing?
The articles say, these are articles from E! News, TMZ, and also divorce.law, which is a website. It's kind of aggregating some of these stories just to sort of discuss what's going on here. The parties share joint legal custody of this child.
So just saying, I can see why the kid's name's Somersault Wonder when you look at these two, I mean, what are we saying here?
Surprised it's not, wackier, frankly. In any event, it says the physical custody schedule favors Daniel. The holidays are split.
Because Sia's busy recording.
Up with it, girl. Rock with it, girl. Show them it, girl. Bada bang bang.
Bada bang bang. Get this. In addition to the child support, she also has to cover 100% of the private school tuition, health care, and extracurricular activities, and obtain a $5 million life insurance policy with the son as beneficiary. But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Okay, tell me.
Pay Daniel's $350,000 in attorney's fees.
Zoink, Scoob.
Yep.
Dang.
They resolved spousal support separately in December of 2025, but the terms haven't been disclosed.
Good job, Daniel. Good work. You crushed it.
But he actually wanted more. He said he requested $250,856 per month in temporary spousal support to maintain a luxurious and upper-class lifestyle.
Nice. By the way, nothing makes women more upset than paying spousal support to dudes. I'm just saying, as people say. By the way, she must be raking in the dough if she's paying this kind of dough out in child support. She's got to be making some big money. And remember that child support number was the big fight in the Costner case.
That usually ends up being a big fight because prenups don't cover child support. So, I mean, I don't know about the prenup situation here. It sounds like, he asked for spousal maintenance, et cetera. So if they had a prenup, it probably didn't cover that. But nevertheless, so they were married on December 28th of 2022, 3-year marriage, March 19th of 2025. So 2.5-year marriage. So
good job, Daniel. You really crushed it, dude.
It's interesting because we previously talked about how she won emergency custody battle back in October of 2025 when the court rejected his claim of her being an unfit parent. She had admitted past drug alcohol issues and then confirmed sobriety with testing, etc.
Well, the line I love here the best, Sia wrote on X, formerly Twitter, as we say, the artist formerly known as Twitter. I'm a sober working mom trying to buy peace. Working mom? Really? You're Sia. That's like Cher saying she's just a working mom out there. If Taylor Swift has a kid, I'm just a working mom trying to get by, paying my $50,000 monthly in child support. I'm on the struggle bus.
And she says, I have primary custody of our son. And since I'm the only parent earning income, I still have to pay California's incredibly high child support.
So this dude, wait, this guy isn't even working?
I can't recall which article it is now. I read somewhere, I believe, that Daniel was a former radiation oncologist, but he isn't practicing. So we'll have to fact check that one. But I recall reading that somewhere.
This guy was an oncologist? All right, people, let's see, people.com. I got to learn about this. Who is the guy? Okay, integrative medicine practice. According to his LinkedIn, He's the CEO and co-founder of Integrated Modern Medicine Services based in LA, holistic healing through acupuncture, sound therapy, and ketamine, vitamin K. Instagram post introducing the practice's team in 2024. Bernard listed as a radiation oncologist, as you said, who is passionate about healthcare innovation, bridging gaps in patient care. Prior to his role there, he attended University of Cambridge, University of Oxford, and McGill University. No dummy. Okay, there you go.
And so in California, child support is a gender-neutral formula and is based on income and timeshares. Rather than pay what the full formula would dictate, you would then tack on additional things that you'll cover instead of giving the person more money.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Sia agreed to pay $42,500 and cover 100% of expenses like schooling, extracurricular, etc. Because adding all that, I mean, the number might be a little bit higher. And then, as far as life insurance, God forbid something happens to her and she dies, the support she would have otherwise paid for this child is still captured by the life insurance. And that's why there is a life insurance requirement, which is why I think she secured it with a $5 million policy. And I'm sure it's for her child's benefit, but he will be, I guess, the custodian for that policy.
Okay.
I'm curious, though, if California tried to ask to impute his income versus not, given that he is, in fact, trained as a doctor, as a radiation oncologist. But at the same time, maybe it was just a fight that was not worth having because her income would far exceed any radiation oncologist would ever earn anyway. So maybe it just wasn't moving the needle enough. I don't know.
There's no comment really about a prenup, so I'm guessing there wasn't one, which is hard to believe. But hey, I guess love conquers all. So there you go. We got Sia's stroking that $42,500 check every month for child support. Wow. Okay. Now, folks, to put it in perspective, if people are multimillionaires, it sounds hard to believe, but you can spend $40,000 a month on your expenses if you have a couple homes and fancy places and a couple of expensive cars and you live a high in the hog kind of lifestyle. For the rest of us, that's a giant number. But for folks who live in a kind of different, that elevated universe, high net worth, ultra high net worth, those numbers aren't crazy to spend 20, 30, 40,000 a month on expenses. So I know it's hard for most of us to wrap our heads around, but it's real. You know, if you own a $5 million home and paying big real estate taxes and all that stuff, you got a couple different houses and some folks fly private and all that stuff, this stuff adds up. Not asking you to feel sorry for people, just give perspective that actually might be a cost that's reasonably related to the cost of raising the child between the expenses this guy pays for rent. Remember, it's California, which is expenses are, a shack is $1 million, and I'm not kidding. So real estate's super expensive, cost of living is super high. So if you live that lifestyle, that number is not insane. And remember, it's based on people's incomes. So Sia's making a ton of money, and it's a percentage of that. It's a formula based on that rather than the living expenses of the recipient. That's usually an argument made by the payor to say, oh, they don't need all this money, but that argument typically fails. Okay, let's talk about our favorite oligarch, Vladimir Potanin. Vlad loses again in London. So his trial is going to happen in November. And the scoop on this is we talked about this in a previous show, I think several episodes ago. We mentioned this guy, Russian billionaire Vladimir Potanin, has suffered a legal setback. So this is from a website called Wealth Advisor. The link will be in the show notes. The judge said there was urgent need to bring the case to trial, citing the extraordinary costs incurred by both sides. Get ready for the legal fees on this one. Approximately 14 million British pounds have been spent on this. And most of you are like, okay, well, what is that in real dollars? Okay. Yeah, freedom dollars, not the monopoly money that Brits use. It's about 19 million, folks, for those of you playing the home game. So, that's $19 million in legal fees, ladies and gentlemen. A final hearing is provisionally scheduled for November. Case originally brought by his wife, Natalia Potanina. I apologize if I didn't pronounce it correctly. The billionaire's former wife, who became a British citizen after the couple separated. Interesting forum shopping. So she goes to England after they get separated. She filed her claim first in 2018, arguing that previous Russian divorce settlements failed to reflect the true scale of the couple's shared wealth. So we have what we call a choice of laws issue, where there was a divorce case in Russia that apparently there was some decision. Then there's divorce she files in England as a strategy to get a better deal. And they're saying that if the case goes through, it could be one of the largest divorce settlements, or I guess judgments, in British legal history. Vladimir has consistently sought to block the case in London, insisting the divorce was already resolved in Russia. Okay, interesting. His legal teams attempted to shift jurisdiction to Moscow, hoping to secure rulings that could keep the case from keeping going in the UK. The dispute is complicated by parallel proceedings in Russia, where courts are reviewing related filings. Legal experts warn, they didn't ask us. By the way, we don't claim we're experts. We can't, according to our ethics rules. We're just very experienced divorce lawyers. They warn that any Russian injunction could expose Natalia to penalties if she continues the litigation in London. So a Russian court could theoretically order a halt on other proceedings. Now, that only goes as far as the Russian court's jurisdiction reaches. You get into this weird issue of what we call comity, C-O-M-I-T-Y. Well, a couple things. Choice of law. So which law should we use to govern this divorce? Russian law, British law. Number two, comity. If there are rulings in one court in another country, does this court recognize those rulings? Apparently, the British court's paying no attention to that. Three, property in the different countries. A decision in Russia, you might get a British court to recognize a Russian judgment and order properties to be transferred in that are in Britain, but that'll be a challenge. And similarly, a divorce judgment in England, good luck getting Russian authorities to enforce it. Let's say there's property in Russia and the divorce judgment says Natalia's supposed to get a big house or dacha, if you will, in Russia. Good luck getting Russian courts to make that happen. So in a sense, it's really two divorce cases going on at the same time, and they might resolve different pieces of their relationship. And when you have jurisdictions that don't really recognize each other, and I'm guessing England won't really recognize a divorce judgment and probably vice versa, this stuff can happen. And this is true of countries like there are divorce judgments around the world here that a U.S. court won't recognize. That in other countries in the world, that U.S. courts generally want to see judgments from common law countries or, countries with a similar legal background, Western nations, Australia, New Zealand, Western Europe, stuff like that. And they get leery about enforcing other judgments. And because they're concerned that they don't afford the due process that our system affords, things that we hold near and dear to our system. If the other system doesn't provide those rights, then our courts are unlikely to enforce those judgments. So that gives you some background here. So the largest publicly known divorce award in Britain was £554 million. It was 2021 to Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum in a separation from his former wife. Her lawyers have described it as a David and Goliath battle, and it sounds like the husband has a lot more financial power. Estimated net worth, $27 billion. So making him one of the richest people in Russia. In previous proceedings, and I think we talked about this before, she was awarded $6.4 million US following the end of their 30-year marriage. Her team argues that's only a small percentage of what she's entitled to. So that's just from late April, that story. This forum shopping issue is a real deal. So, English family courts apparently are famously generous in these long marriage divorces, which apparently ex-spouses shop to go to London to get go to England to get better decisions that favor them. Apparently foreign billionaire spouses tend to pop up in England and file for divorce. There's an act in England that lets a divorced spouse get a second bite in England if they get sufficient connection, residency, property ownership in England, even if the divorce was abroad, which is exactly what Natalia did. There is some domicile or forum shopping in the U.S., but it's a little trickier because of our Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, which is the thing governing child custody jurisdiction, which has rules about the home state for the children. So if you have kids, it's harder to shop for a forum. If you don't have children, a little easier, but the court looks at all the facts and looks at kind of where the center of gravity of your stuff is and where you live during most of the marriage. Things like that. If you could theoretically file in 2 different states, and there are some battles like that, but they're not as common. In episode 37, we predicted this case would go to trial and probably settle because neither case wants to have this thing actually go to trial and be public. So we'll see what happens in November. I'm guessing you see some kind of settlement where he throws money at her if he thinks it's going to go to trial. So, okay. Rahul, let's talk about Sia's case. Shows courts taking positions on parenting time when both parents are alive, obviously, and well. What happens when it's not the other parent fighting? It's the in-laws. So, Rahul, let's talk about grandparent visitation, a sensitive topic.
Very interesting, and this is a good time to talk about this. I know we've been talking about when we should discuss the grandparents' rights, as they call it. But this is coming out, now because the story about a case that's been sort of making its rounds here recently over the last few weeks, where single dad up in Rhode Island, widowed single father, won a contentious grandparents' rights trial. Famously, he said it cost him more than $500,000. You have pictures of him where he's like crying in celebration of how happy he was that his deceased wife's parents couldn't spend time or couldn't exercise time with the child. So anyway, background. Scott Naso is a Middleton, I guess, Rhode Island narcotic detective and a widowed single father. And his wife, Sherry Naso, died of breast cancer in April of 2024, unfortunately.
By the way, these things usually come out of sad stories because one of the parents is typically dead and then there's a fight, right? So, so tell a little bit more about the background. It's a little more here than just grandparents want to see the kids.
Right, exactly. She died at age 37, 3 months before their daughter Layla's third birthday. Her parents were both doctors, pediatrician and pathologist, but they had both retired and relinquished their medical licenses after their daughter passed away.
Which was kind of strange that timing was kind of like coincidental. And then there's a little more to it.
He alleges that they caused or contributed to her death by misdiagnosing the symptoms of her cancer. Basically, I think shrugged it off by saying it's just weaning off Prozac, for example, or lymphedema. She actually apparently, very sadly, actually had a massive brain tumor. He also then discovered that, I believe her father had written over 36 prescriptions for the child before she turned 3. And so they wanted, after their daughter passed away, they wanted visitation. And he, as a concerned father, objected to it.
Yeah, and the trial started in October 25 and just got wrapped up in March
of 26. Now, I don't know if it went every single day for the last, whatever months, because the judge has a regular calendar, but it was obviously not your run-of-the-mill trial. It was very extensive and detailed, and obviously they went into all this health, misdiagnosis of the deceased wife, prescriptions for the child, 36 plus, and the fact that he was a narcotics detective. So I think all of this sort of just made this connection very, very like combustible mixture, I guess. He meaning the Judge Gill, denied the visitation petition the day before the second anniversary of the wife's death. And so in Illinois, you can't petition if you're a grandparent. We often get the call, or not often, I should say, every once in a while we get a call. Hey, so-and-so won't let me see my grandchildren. Can I ask the court to grant me visitation? So first and foremost, you need to have standing, right? So standing is basically, am I the right person, or do I have the ability to even make this request? If both parents are alive, you don't have standing.
And the core concept that parents get to decide who their children see and who they spend time with. So if both parents say, hey, we don't want them to see person A, B, or C, or these grandparents, they're not going to see them.
Right, exactly. And you don't have to just be deceased, right? There could also be like one of the parents is incarcerated, for example. So there's a list of possible scenarios that'll allow this to happen. But suffice to say, this is in a different jurisdiction. They probably have their own series of laws, and they craft their own determination on whether or not grandparents should see their grandchildren, absent the parents' involvement.
So I've got a little direct relevant story on this. I'm old enough to be around in the divorce world when Troxel versus Granville is a Supreme Court case that states had come out with these grandparent visitation laws, but let's just say for the sake of discussion, they came out before Troxel, which was 2000. So states were crafting their own independent grandparent right, or they even not just grandparent, but what they call like a person acting as a parent. So it could be like an aunt or uncle or other people that, for example, had been like a caregiver, but they use grandparent as sort of the term they use all the time. Different states were passing these laws to allow grandparents and other third parties to claim they have a visitation right to children in extraordinary circumstances where one parent was dead, one parent was in jail, as Rahul said, et cetera. So they'd say, well, a classic example is the grandparents are caregivers of this child and help the family out for X amount of time and really become almost like substitute parents. And one of the parents dies or goes in jail, and the other parent doesn't like these folks for whatever reason and says, well, I don't want you to see them. They then petition with the court to get visitation. So like I said, it's usually a sad situation because somebody gets jailed or they die to create the conditions, the standing that Rahul says.
The condition precedent. or precedent.
And so this Supreme Court case was a situation, it's Troxel versus Granville, and the U.S. Supreme Court was looking at a particular state's grandparent visitation law, which had a story sort of like this. And the Supreme Court said fit parents, not unfit parents, have a fundamental constitutional right to raise their children, including deciding who gets to be with them, which makes sense. State grandparent visitation statutes are presumptively unconstitutional unless they give special weight to the parent's decision. This is from the opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court, which resulted in states revising their grandparent visitation laws, which happened in Illinois. And we have now it's 750 ILCS 5/5/602.9. We just call it 602.9. There is in Illinois, grandparents can petition under specific circumstances, deceased, missing, incompetent parent, like literally incompetent, or parents are divorced and no one objects. Then there's a rebuttable presumption. So we assume the parent's decision to not let them see the kids is in the child's best interest. The grandparent must overcome that presumption with clear and convincing evidence. That's a high burden. It's not easy to find clear and convincing. The courts consider multiple factors. Would visits harm the child? What's the mental, physical health of everybody? The prior relationship. In our experience, these grandparent petitions fail much more often than they succeed. I had a real case where the wife died of a drug overdose in the grandparents' home. They also abused drugs, according to our information. And my client, the dad, wanted the children nowhere near these people. He had cleaned up after he had been an addict as well. He was a good dad, had a good job, and he wanted the grandparents nowhere near these children. And he had a good basis. And I went all the way through the case, litigated the whole thing. And they ended up settling on the day of trial and giving up because he didn't want them anywhere near them. And I had a mountain of evidence as to why. But they were just insistent on seeing the child. The one thing they weren't able to show, I asked them, I took their deposition, and you had to be able to show that not seeing them would be harmful in a previous version of the statute. They had no way of saying, they said, we don't know. We don't have an answer to that. They had no way of addressing that the lack of their visitation would harm the child in some way. They had no answer, which killed their case. It got done, but these cases are ugly because they're unfortunate. That's the basic situation. But so Rahul, talk about what's the evidence that wins these cases for the parent?
Kind of what you just said, dovetailing from that, which is show that proof of grandparents' involvement is harmful, like in this case that we just talked about, not you talked about, but the story, medical misconduct, alleged medical misconduct, instability, alienating behavior, or anything else that you think that might be harmful, or frankly, that doesn't benefit the child in some serious way, documented prior relationship conflicts, what their prior involvement was, the parents' consistent reasoned decision-making about the child. And in this, again, going back to the story here that we started, he, meaning the dad, had medical records, prescriptions, text messages, all these things that established that these grandparents would likely harm the child if they had any further involvement. And that's why it meant so much for him to keep this child away, because he also, it sounds like, blames them for his wife's death. If you were the grandparent, how do you, now the flip side, right? What do you do if you're the grandparent? You got to show you had long pre-existing caregiving relationship for the child. You were seeing this grandchild or child constantly. You can show that the parent is being retaliatory or punitive for some reason.
Yeah, you have to show that harm to the child. And you might be able to. You might be able to get feedback from counselor, from guardian ad litem, and the kid's saying, I miss grandma and grandpa. If they were hugely involved in the child's life and the child's pining to see them, now you got something.
Yeah. Like, for example, every day after school, the kid would go to the grandparents' house until dinner time and then would be picked up by the parents. The kid did that for 3 years, had this routine, loved his grandparents, everything was great. And now something happens and now the kid doesn't get to go to grandparents anymore, of no fault of grandparents, by the way. Let's just say the parents get a divorce and the dad is like, you don't get to go see your grandparents anymore. I'm not doing that. You're going to have to go, stay home with my girlfriend, for example.
So these are tough cases to prove. People will spend a lot of money fighting on this stuff. And like I said, they're usually sad stories, or always kind of a sad story is built around these by nature. So it's a long shot. It can work with the right set of circumstances. It's best to consult with an experienced divorce lawyer who has handled these cases to know your rights and responsibilities and understand your chances before you dive into something like this. I always say the easiest thing to do is be nice and try to just work something out. Once you file things in court, people start shooting bullets proverbial bullets at each other, then all the resentment starts. People spend money on lawyers, and then, good luck having a nice, any kind of relationship. It's like going to catch a lot more flies with honey. So if you're the grandparent out there wanting visitation, try to figure out how to approach the parent nicely and offer to help them with the child and figure out what the difference is or what are your issues and try to sort them out. It's a lot cheaper than litigation, and you're kind of dealing with uphill battle. Moving on here, let's talk about, we got our lighter side here. We're talking about, we love dating trends and we love like new wine in old bottles, or old wine in new bottles. Sorry, I got that wrong. Tell us about Bruce Lee's latest.
All right, Bruce Lee, not the martial artist, but rather the psychologist / MBA holder.
We need a karate chop sound or something.
Hiya, or something, So new term of the day or of the week or whatever. Choremancing is when you turn ordinary errands and household tasks into bonding and romantic moments. So no more is you going to the grocery store on a Saturday or Sunday morning with your partner a chore, but rather it's a choremancing. So
I press X to doubt, as the kids say in video game land. This sounds like something arranged by women to put one over on us and make us like chores. I think Bruce Lee's working for the other side.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like a pushback against the highly curated date culture where you go to, it's performative. You're going to fancy dinners at, Bavette's, here in Chicago, for example,
You tell your wife, hey, instead of going to Bavette's, or fill in the blank, STK, okay, newly open in Oak Brook, fancy steak place. We're going to go to a cocktail bar, and then we're going to go to get awesome dinner. Instead of that, I thought maybe you'd help me change the spark plug in the lawnmower.
Let's go to Aldi and get some chips and make a plate of poverty nachos.
Rooted in the same psych research showing small everyday acts of partnership, the John Gottman bids for connection. By the way, big Gottman fan here. Talk about Gottmans in my new book. I Just Want to Know How Smart, Successful People Decide on Divorce Without Fear, Uncertainty, and Doubt. Coming soon. Gottman does all kinds of great research on marriages, and they talk about bids for connection. And that's when your wife says, oh, look at that bird out there. And instead of ignoring her, you go, oh, the bird is pretty, or something like that. And they say in a marriage or a romantic relationship, we make bids for each other's attention constantly in big and small ways. And the more we acknowledge the bids, essentially the more points you're scoring in building the relationship in all these little ways during the day. So here you go. This is great. If you're just starting out dating somebody, don't try to sell the spark plug change to her. You probably need to go to Bavette's, guys, or somewhere fancy. Got to up your game. Yeah, it's for us long-term married guys where, maybe the picking up the dog poop with your wife is romantic, I guess.
Right, exactly. Although I would say, if you're Costco is the exception. So Costco is a great place to take someone on a date. You get the hot dog, you can get the $1.50 pizza slice, you can walk around getting free samples, and you just get to watch the human condition there. You just walk around and people watch. It's like a zoo with people, full of people, all kinds of people from all walks of life.
All this stuff is new to them. It's like if you got kids and they're dating somebody and they tell you something about their relationship and you know exactly what's going on and you want to give them advice and you tell them and they say, you don't know, Dad, it's different now, and it's not different at all. Romantic relationships have not changed ever. Maybe we have online stuff and different communications, but the partnership issues are all still there. The romantic challenges are all the same. And so Gen Z thinks it's all new and that they're facing it alone. Nobody's ever gone through this before. I got news for you. This is the same old stuff.
And to borrow, Gen Alpha, I guess is where we're at now, lingo here. It's like you're like date maxing here or chore maxing, not choremancing like Bruce Lee says, but maxing with 2 X's as they kind of talk about these days.
Are you doing any choremancing, Rahul? What are you guys up to this weekend?
You know what? Honestly, I might be going to Costco. Frankly.
Oh,
no,
very nice.
But it's my wife's birthday this weekend. Shout out. I will actually not be choremancing, and I will actually do one of those real date things that they talk about,
All right, folks, thanks for listening. We got a little bit to tell you. STG Divorce Law for divorce consultations. How smart, successful people get divorced in Chicagoland. We are your choice. The playbook, A to Z. I just want this done. How smart, successful people get divorced without losing their kids, money, and minds. Available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and where all great ebooks are sold. 9,000 copies sold. That's epic sales for a nonfiction book, whether by individual publishing or self-publishing or by a real publisher. So it's crushing it still all these years after first publication. Check it out. Still getting great reviews. And I just want to know, coming out soon, for listener questions, check out our Illinois Divorce Support Network, our Facebook group, free to join, anonymous to post. Read other people's posts and answers to questions. We answer some of them on the show. You can look at prior episodes for those answers too. And we answer questions there from all kinds of people. The group helps out too. 1,700 members and growing. And next week, we're going to be talking about more great stuff like this. And we appreciate you watching the show. Please give us a review and comment and share. That helps us know that you like the show and understand we're doing the right thing for you. Or if you want to see something else, let us know. We're always interested in your feedback. Review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods, and also on YouTube, please. That is our agreement with you. We produce this content for gratis, for free, not a zip, not $1. All we ask is your reviews, comments, likes, and shares. So, and subscribe. Thank you very much, folks. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.